When I was 12, I had a really irritating case of tonsil stones. No matter what I did, I couldn't get them out and was starting to get a little desperate. I decided to use a vacuum cleaner, not a small one, an actual household vacuum cleaner, on its lowest setting to suck them out. I ended up bleeding a lot and my uvula swelled up so much my throat almost closed. The hospital still wouldn't take out my tonsils. I was not a smart child. Pain-killing suppositories come in individual foil packets. After my C-section, the nurse handed me one and said, "Don't forget to take the foil off." I looked at her and went, "No, somebody did that?" She gave me this really tired look and nodded. I'm a dietitian. I had a client tell me she had a salad with her meals, but kept gaining weight. After some questions, I found out she never ate the salad. She just had it next to her fattening food. I had a patient come to the ER complaining of severe pain and swelling all down there. On physical examination, we noted a really remarkable amount of swelling, and both the internal and external tissues were extremely red and irritated. She was so swollen, she couldn't even pee until we put a catheter in. The physician did a pelvic exam and found blisters on her cervix. We asked when the symptoms started. She said, "Well, it was itching tonight. I thought I had a yeast infection, so poured a cup of bleach up in there to kill it. But then, after a while, it kind of started to hurt." Yeah, I bet it did. TLDR. Do not pour bleach into your vagina. Back in 1969, my car broke down, so I borrowed my uncle's truck, a Divco he used to deliver milk. It had a giant smiley cow painted on the sides. My date hid her face as we drove through town. First question out of his mouth right after I sat down. "I assume you're okay with signing a prenup?" Before what? Ordering dessert, our second date. Waitressing, and I waited on a first date at lunchtime. He arrived first and got a beer. When she arrived, she asked for water and looked at the menu. I then went to take their orders, but he spoke over her, saying he wanted another beer, but otherwise they were fine for now. I went back twice to take their orders, and each time he talked right over her, saying they were fine. After about 20 minutes of this, she got up and left. As I brought him the bill for his beers, he said something about how hard it was to find a decent woman to date. I couldn't help myself and told him, maybe if you had let her eat, seeing as how you invited her to lunch, she'd still be here. He was a friend of a friend, so I was okay with him picking me up for our date. His car was a manual transmission. Every time he went to shift, he just used his fingertips, all limp and delicate. It reminded me of how a woman holds her hands after getting her nails done. Judge me all you want, but I had to turn him down for a second date. It was just too weird. I went out with a girl I knew from college. We had grown up in neighboring cities. I got to talking about a party back home where a really obnoxious guy had gotten too drunk and did a lot of stupid stuff, including headbutting me. Long story short, it turned out that the obnoxious guy was her brother. The date pretty much went downhill after that. I was on a date with a guy and we stopped at a farmer's market where he bought some blueberries. He then offered a blueberry, and I do mean one blueberry, to a guy sitting by the market. After a few minutes, when I hadn't said anything, he asked me if I'd seen him give the guy a blueberry. I said, yes, I had seen it, and then I changed the subject. He was in a foul mood the rest of the date, like, it was obviously performative that he kindly gave some guy one blueberry and was now upset that I did an aw and oh over him. I used to work in a lab in a hospital in a rural town. I got a stool sample from the ER that was basically a blood clot the size of a golf ball. Sometimes the ER gets mixed up and sends me the wrong specimen, like some kind of body fluid, and labeled it as urine, for example. I called the patient's nurse and asked what the deal was with the patient and if it was really stool they sent up. The nurse I talked to said the patient thought he'd eaten bad pork and to prevent food poisoning, drank a concoction of bleach, rubbing alcohol, vodka, ibuprofen, and some Tums. She ate her peas one at a time, but scooped her corn niblets. That's just too weird, right? I was okay with turning her down for a second date, right? I worked at an upscale seafood restaurant for about a year. One particular woman would bring in a different date each week. Every single time she was there, she would erect this barrier between her and the date. I'm talking salt and pepper shakers, menus, dishes, drinks. Whatever she could get her hands on, she would use to construct a little wall, then carry on with the date as if that was completely normal. The confusion on the faces of the men she would bring in was always my favorite part of Saturday night. 911 dispatch here. Heard the story secondhand, but a kid had a crazy high fever and wouldn't stop crying. Paramedics got on scene, and the mom was squeezing a lemon while rubbing it all over the baby's forehead because it was supposed to keep the fever down. Mom was completely at a loss as to why the baby wouldn't stop crying either. It couldn't possibly be the lemon juice you'd essentially been squeezing into the baby's eyes for the last 20 minutes. No siree. I just had a 55-year-old man come in last week, stage 4 cancer. Wife brought him in because he had difficulty breathing, thought it spread to his lungs. Turned out it hadn't, but he went for chemo 2 weeks before and refused to wear a mask as an immunocompromised person. Refused CAP, refused sedation and intubation. His oxygen saturation was dropping fast. Suspected hospital-acquired pneumonia, and chest x-ray confirmed pneumonia with lung consolidation. Of course, he denied it again and threatened us for being stupid. Died the next day. Culture came back positive after that for an organism causing hospital-acquired pneumonia. Masks aren't a mere suggestion. His poor wife, though. She apparently told her ex where she'd be so that he would show up at the same time, see that she was on a date, and get jealous. Joke's on her. He and I hit it off, and we're friends to this day, while I never called her for a second date. First date. A torrential downpour started that evening. His car wouldn't start, so he borrowed his brother's. He wasn't used to handling it, so he ran up over a curb and got a flat tire. We got out to change it in the rain. This was before road service, so now we were soaking wet. We went to an old-style drive-in movie. Things were looking up, but then, on the ride home, he hit a pothole that he couldn't see because the roads were so wet. The muffler fell off. He just put it in the trunk and took me home, where my brother was drinking on the porch and yelling at the neighbors. We've been married 13 years now. I grew up in upstate New York, where my dad had his practice. He's an OB-GYN. Genesee Brewery was nearby, so it was a fairly popular adult beverage brand with the locals. A patient came into the office for a prenatal checkup. As part of his follow-up, he asked if they were drinking anything they shouldn't, so that he could tell them to avoid it. The woman reassured him that her drinking habit was fine. "Oh, don't worry, doctor. I drink good stuff. I drink Jenny Cream." My dad then had to explain that even if she's drinking the good stuff, she still can't have it when pregnant. She honestly thought that if she had good stuff, it'd be fine for the baby. Yikes. Plus, I think Genesee Cream is pretty awful to begin with, which makes the story funnier. Not my first date, but I got a text from some woman who had apparently slept with a guy after a date. She couldn't read the last 2 digits of the phone number he had scribbled down, so she was spamming every combination she could think of. At first, I played along with a maybe it was me, maybe it wasn't, just trying to be funny. She then said that she got a dull going into work the next morning as she was still drunk and thought her date should pay her ticket. I couldn't block her fast enough. My neighbors had 3 kids that were all around my age, so we all hung out. The youngest of theirs was a boy who wasn't the brightest bulb in the lamp. Their mom had some digestive illness and went in for a full workup that included a barium enema. Before going in, she sat the kids down and explained to them what it was and why she was getting it done. Fast forward a few weeks. We were all watching a movie. The mom turned out to be fine with some meds, and the youngest son walked into the room. He was walking very strangely with his ass clenched together. Someone asked him what was wrong, and he said that he had given himself an enema. We all laughed and thought he was joking. Well, he wasn't. As it turned out, he had a stomach ache and decided, based on the information he had, that an enema was the way to fix it. So he went into his dad's shop, grabbed some industrial epoxy that came in the form of an injection tube, and gave himself an enema with it. It then dried up and glued his ass shut. And they took him to the hospital, and the doctors were able to get a hold of the manufacturer and find out that there was a compound they could buy that would break the adhesive down. Over the course of several hours, they flushed his ass with the compound until they were sure they had gotten all the epoxy out. I was bartending one New Year's Eve at this upscale casual cocktail joint. A couple sat down for what I could tell what a first date. The guy got a little sloshed and then pulled up his ex's Instagram. He started asking his date if she thought he was hotter than the ex's new boyfriend. Worse, he kept doubling down, saying things like, "Well, I think you're hotter than her, so why can't you say it to me?" She didn't even last until midnight, but got an Uber out of there after less than an hour. It was painful to watch.